Hey there, welcome back to Dad Mode, God, Grit, and Goals. I'm your host, Mike Tobias, and whether you're listening in the car, during a workout, or just taking a few moments for yourself, I'm so glad you are here with me today. So let me ask you something. How many times have you told yourself, I'm going to start tomorrow, or maybe I'll wait till I'm really feeling it? Whether it's getting back to the gym, changing your diet, or finally taking better care of yourself. I've been there more times than I can count, waiting for that perfect burst of motivation just to show up. But here's the hard truth that I've had to learn. For many people, motivation doesn't show up until it's too late. Sometimes it doesn't hit you until you're flat on your back in a hospital bed. I know that because that's exactly what happened to me. I'll never forget that moment. This was a few years back. I was playing hockey with my son, something I'd loved doing for years. And now I was in good physical condition at the time for an old guy. I'd been part of a Sunday morning pickup game for years and was excited that my adult son was finally going to be able to join me on the ice. But the first shift that morning, something was off. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, and there was a weight pressing down on me. At first, I thought it was the energy drink I had before the game. It wasn't something I usually drink, so I brushed it off, thinking it was just the caffeine or something like that, but that wasn't it. By the time I was off the ice, I knew something was seriously wrong. I was having a hard time catching my breath. That night, I ended up in the hospital with a bilateral pulmonary embolism, 2 blood clots in my lungs. And here's the thing. I wasn't supposed to make it through the night. I didn't know that night. I didn't know it until the next day when a nurse told me, you weren't supposed to survive. I told my husband last night that a patient came in that's not going to make it. That shook me to my core. And in that moment, my health wasn't something I could put off anymore. It wasn't about motivation. It was about survival. Now that scare got me into action. I got into shape after that. I lost some weight, took care of myself, and I pushed hard. But here's the catch. Motivation doesn't last. Maybe you've noticed that. For me, several months later, the urgency faded. The pounds started creeping back on, and I realized that what I lacked wasn't motivation. It was something else entirely. I needed momentum. That's when I started with something simple. 1 push-up, 1 sit-up, adding just 1 more each day. It wasn't about intensity. It was about consistency. Slowly, those small actions built up, and before I knew it, momentum had taken over where motivation left off. But here's the thing. Momentum isn't just about building habits. It's about shifting your focus. So many of us lose motivation because we're comparing ourselves to the wrong things, whether it's someone else's success, someone else's body, someone else's journey. That's the trap of comparison. We end up demotivating ourselves when we measure our progress against others instead of focusing on who we were yesterday and who we're becoming today. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How to stop waiting for motivation. How to stop comparing yourself to everyone else. And how to start building momentum. Because motivation, it's like a spark. It flares up and it burns out. Momentum, on the other hand, is like a rolling snowball. The more you keep it going, the bigger it gets, and the easier it becomes to stay on track. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, if you're ready to take control of your health before you reach a breaking point, stick with me. In today's episode, we're going to break down the difference between motivation and momentum and why comparison can kill progress, and more importantly, how you can start building momentum today. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. So buckle up. Let's get into it. We've all been there, waiting for that burst of energy, the perfect wave of motivation to get us going, scrolling endlessly through TikTok, hoping to find that one video that's going to make me decide to get fired up and get going. Maybe you've told yourself, when I feel motivated, I'll finally start working out, or when I'm in the right headspace, I'll eat better. It's something we've all done, waiting for that magical moment where everything just clicks and we feel ready. But here's the truth. Motivation is fleeting. Some days you feel it, some days you don't. In fact, most days you don't. And if you're waiting around for the spark of motivation to magically show up, you might be waiting a long time. It's too easy to get distracted. Worse yet, you might find yourself waiting until something serious happens before you get moving, like I did. So let's define motivation for what it really is. Motivation is the equal and opposite force of deprivation. Think about it. When you feel deprived of something, whether it's health, happiness, success, wealth, you get motivated to take action, to fill that void. It's a reaction to a sense of lack. But here's the problem. Once that feeling of deprivation starts to fade, so does the motivation. Think about it. Have you ever lost weight? The motivation is high when you feel deprived of your health or physical comfort. But once you start seeing progress, that sense of deprivation fades, and so does the motivation to keep going. You no longer feel that strong pull because the urgency isn't as pressing. You see, motivation is reactive. It shows up when you feel deprived and disappears when you feel like you've solved the problem. That's why it's so unreliable in the long run. So let me give you a common example, crash diets. When you start a crash diet, you're usually motivated by deprivation. You deprive yourself of certain foods or drastically cut calories, and that deprivation fuels your motivation, at least for a while. But here's the thing, no one can sustain that level of deprivation. Eventually, motivation fades, the diet becomes unbearable, and you end up right back where you started, or worse, even further behind. Crash diets don't work because they're built on deprivation. And when you're constantly in a state of deprivation, you can't build something sustainable. Motivation fueled by deprivation is short-lived. And that's why so many people get stuck in the yo-yo cycle of losing weight, gaining it back, and starting all over again. But it goes even deeper than that. Motivation is also about frame of reference. So think through this with me. It's not just about how much you lack, but who you're comparing yourself to. So let me give you an example. When we talk about money, you'd think that people who lack it would be highly motivated, right? Poor people lack money, and so they should be money motivated. But that's not always the case. Sometimes people who have very little aren't motivated to change because of their frame of reference, meaning the people they're comparing themselves to are in the same situation. So they don't feel deprived relative to those around them. On the flip side, I know plenty of wealthy people who seemingly have it all, and they're incredibly motivated. Why? Because they're not comparing themselves to me. They're comparing themselves to their friends who are even richer than they are. Their frame of reference shifts, and even though they have plenty, they feel deprived in comparison. That deprivation fuels their motivation. So this concept applies to everything, whether it's health, success, your relationships. If you're constantly comparing yourself to someone who seems to be doing better than you, that comparison can drive motivation. But here's the problem. It's exhausting and it's unsustainable. Chasing motivation based on external comparisons creates a never-ending cycle of dissatisfaction over and over and over again. And here's something even more dangerous. When you constantly compare yourself to others, it doesn't just demotivate you. It can stop you from progressing altogether. Comparing yourself to someone else's success, someone else's journey, or someone else's body can make you feel like you're not good enough, no matter how hard you try. There's tremendous power in asking the question, compared to what? I've been asking that a lot lately. Compared to what? What are you measuring yourself against? Because when you compare yourself to anything other than who you were yesterday, you lose sight of the most important part of the journey, who you are becoming. The goal isn't to be better than someone else. The goal is to be better than you were yesterday. Who you're becoming is far more important than how you compare to someone else. So this shift in perspective changed everything for me. Instead of focusing on what you don't have or how you fall short, or you're focused on your growth, on the progress you're making, one step at a time. That's where real motivation comes from, not from deprivation or comparison, but from becoming the best version of yourself. So if motivation isn't the answer, then what is? Well, I call it momentum. The answer is momentum. Momentum is what happens when you start taking small, consistent actions, even when you don't feel like it. And the amazing thing about momentum is that it builds on itself. Once you start, even with the smallest step, it creates a ripple effect that carries you forward. It doesn't matter if you feel motivated or not. What matters is that you're moving. So let me give you an example. After I realized that motivation alone wasn't enough to keep me going, I knew I needed something different. So I started small, like really small. I decided after looking at myself in the mirror and being disgusted, and several days of saying, I got to do something about this, and yet not doing anything, I decided I'm going to do one push-up and one sit-up tomorrow morning when I wake up. And so I did. That's it. It didn't sound like much, but I got on the floor and I did it. And then I committed to adding just one more each day. It's like, I knew I could do more than one. And so tomorrow I'm going to do 2. And then I'll do 3. And adding one more isn't that much, really. At first, it feels silly. 1 push-up, 1 sit-up. But here's the thing. It wasn't about the number. It was about the habit. I was building momentum. Every day I showed up, I added 1 more. And slowly those small actions started to add up. And after 90 days, I was doing 90 push-ups and 90 sit-ups each day. And here's the best part. By that time, it'd become part of my routine. It wasn't something I had to push myself to do. It was just what I did. Now today, I've backed it down. I do 62 sit-ups and 62 push-ups every morning, nonstop, before I even really think about it. It's simply part of my morning ritual. It's like brushing my teeth. The numbers have changed a bit, but the habit is there. It's solid. It's ingrained. And that's momentum in action. It's not about waking up motivated. It's about having built a structure that carries me forward, even when I don't feel like it. That's the power of momentum. You don't need to do it all at once. You just need to start, no matter how small. It's like rolling a snowball down a hill. At first, it's a tiny little baseball, and it's barely moving. But as it rolls, it picks up more and more snow, and before you know it, it's bigger and moving faster than you ever imagined. Momentum is what carries you through when motivation fails. When you build momentum, you create a system that keeps you going even on the days when you don't feel like it, which, honestly, are most days. When you've built that discipline and added the small, consistent action, momentum takes over. You're no longer relying on how you feel in the moment. This is where most people get stuck. They think they have to overhaul their entire life to see progress. But the truth is, it's the small, consistent steps that lead to the biggest changes over time. You got to put time on your side. Time is going to go by. A year from now, you're going to be a year older. It's not about doing everything all at once. It's about doing something every day, even if it feels small. I like to think of momentum as kind of an automatic engine. Once you've done the hard work of starting it, it just keeps on running. And the more momentum you build, the easier it becomes to keep going. You don't have to rely on motivation because you've already built the habit. You've created a system that works no matter how you feel that day. And it's the same with anything in life, whether it's your health, relationships, your career, or your faith. It's those small daily actions that build momentum. And once you've got that momentum on your side, you're going to be amazed at what you can accomplish. All right, so now that we've talked about the difference between motivation and momentum, I want to get practical. How do you actually start building momentum? What are the small steps you can take today to get the ball rolling in your life? So I'm going to share a few tips that help me shift from relying on motivation to building that daily momentum. Small actions that you can start implementing right now. And the key here is sustainability. Picking habits and actions that you can live with for the rest of your life. And that's how I think about it. Can I do this the rest of my life? The first step's simple. Start small. And I mean really small. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make is thinking they need to overhaul their entire life in one go. But that's a recipe for burnout. You know you've done this before. You've tried it. You've done it. You either failed and dropped out, or you succeeded, and then everything's kind of gone back to status quo. What you need is a small win, something you can do every day, no matter what. For me, it was 1 push-up and 1 sit-up. That's it. Might sound like nothing, but that's the point. It's not overwhelming. And it's something I knew I could do, even on the worst days. When you start small, you're lowering the barrier to entry. You're removing the mental block that says, I don't have time, or I don't have the energy. Pick something you can do today that feels almost too easy. Maybe it's walking for 10 minutes, or drinking water first thing in the morning rather than coffee. The goal is to get started, not to be perfect. The second tip is to build consistency into your routine. If you can tie a new habit to something you're already doing, it becomes much easier to stick with it. This is called habit stacking. So for me, my push-ups and sit-ups became part of my morning routine. It's as automatic as brushing my teeth. I don't think about it anymore. It's just something I do. If you want to make sure you don't skip a day, find a way to link your new habit to something you already do every day. So, for example, if you want to start walking more, maybe you tie it to your morning coffee and tell yourself, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes as soon as I've had my coffee. This is exactly what I did with another habit, cutting out sugar from my diet. I used to add sugar to my coffee every morning, but I decided to replace that habit. It wasn't a dramatic or unsustainable. I just stopped adding sugar, and over time it became my new normal. Small changes done consistently can have a huge impact over time. I was a big cinnamon dolce lover, and that syrup is filled with sugar. So I got rid of the syrup, and I just put cinnamon powder in my coffee. The other measurement I use is my bathroom scale. Now, let me back up. One thing that helped me stay consistent was tracking my progress. I didn't use any fancy apps or complicated systems. So for me, push-ups and sit-ups, I just did the math in my head. Every day, the calendar added a day. It did that automatically for me, so the days add up. And I knew how many reps to do. It was that simple. And then the other thing was the bathroom scale, but not in the way most people use it. I didn't care what the day-to-day number was. I wasn't looking for instant results. And really, I wasn't even looking for a specific weight goal. I knew I needed to lose weight, but I didn't really even have a target in mind. Instead, I focused on the weekly trajectory. I just wanted to know, is the number going up or down over the course of a week? Day-to-day fluctuations are too frequent. It can be misleading because sometimes I'd have to be out on business. Sometimes, it's a weekend, whatever. You're looking for trends. And so if it was trending down, great, keep going. If it started to trend up or flatten out, something's up. Maybe I need to do something different. This approach took the pressure off and helped me stay focused on my overall progress. And this next one is key. You want to set habits that are sustainable in the long term. I think a lot of people fail because they try and do something dramatic. So that's just a trap. It's like cutting out entire food groups or doing extreme workout routines. These things rarely last. Crash diets end, extreme routines end. What you need are habits you can live with for the rest of your life. For example, I knew that adding one push-up and one sit-up every day couldn't go on forever. That's not sustainable. So after 90 days, I said, what am I going to do? And I couldn't do 90 sit-ups and 90 push-ups all at once. I had to do them in sets. And I thought, well, I can actually get to 60. And then I thought, I'm 62 years old. So I settled on 62 push-ups and 62 sit-ups. And then when I turn 63, guess how many I'm going to do? 63 sit-ups, 63 push-ups. I'm going to add one more a year because I'd love to be 80, doing 80 sit-ups and 80 push-ups every morning. So it's a habit that grows with me, and it's realistic, and I know I can stick with it. The same principle applies to cutting out sugar. I didn't quit sugar cold turkey across everything in my diet. I started with my coffee, one small change I could sustain, and over time, those small changes added up to a bigger transformation, which leads me to another topic and an idea called stacking your good habits. So here's the thing about momentum. One good habit leads to another. Once you get into a rhythm of doing anything on a daily basis, for me, my push-ups and sit-ups, I found adding more activities just kind of naturally started to come. And so by the end of that 90 days, not only was I doing my sit-ups and push-ups, but I started swimming, I started biking, I started running, and I was still playing hockey every week. So these habits didn't happen all at once. They stacked up on top of each other. Momentum builds on itself. And I ended up losing 30 pounds in the process. So weight was never a goal. I just wanted to be healthier. And 30 pounds was the result. A year later, I've lost 40 pounds over my overall weight. So not only did if I would have set a goal for a weight, it would have been 175 pounds. I thought about that. But I hit 165. I've weighed as much as 207. So don't think you have to do everything all at once. Start with one small habit, and as you build momentum, you'll find yourself naturally adding more. I don't have cheat days. There's nothing I need to cheat. I just have new habits. Think about that. Think about how good you're going to feel when your habits are creating the lifestyle, the health that you want, and it's effortless because it's just who you have become. I'm so excited for you about this. See, when you do everything all at once and you try and just do these 90-day intense, you're not changing yourself. You haven't become a new person. You're just grinding it out. I don't live my life grinding it out. I live my life with a set of healthy habits. And I'm not bragging on myself. I'm trying to share with you that when you do it this way, it's normal. It's just a new normal. So you need encouragement along the way if you're like me. I mean, yes, I still need motivation, but this one's important. You need to celebrate the small wins. Don't wait until you've reached your ultimate goal to acknowledge your progress. Every step forward is a victory. I celebrate it every night when I put my head on the pillow. Did you do your sit-ups and push-ups today? Yes. Way to go. Good job. When I started running, it was like, I ran today. You set a schedule for that. I'm going to run twice a week. Did I do that before I put my head on the pillow? Yes. Way to go. Then I started swimming. Did I swim? Yes, I did. And then you start with a couple of laps, and then you add more laps, and it's just on and on it goes. It doesn't matter if it's completing your first week of walking, or resisting that late night snack, or sticking with your morning push-ups and sit-ups for 30 days straight. These small wins are what build your confidence and fuel your momentum. It's the feedback you need that you are the kind of person that sticks to things, that you have the ability to actually create new habits. And by the way, you can't have a habit of stopping doing something. You have to have a habit of doing something. So if you're trying to stop doing something like quit smoking, you can't have a habit of quit smoking. I don't have a habit of not smoking. I just don't smoke. It's not a habit. I have a habit of eating healthy. I have a habit of exercising. And if I were to drink or to smoke, I'm going to pay for it the next morning when I get up to do my sit-ups and push-ups. The feedback loop is there. I know immediately that I overate last night, or I shouldn't have drank. So don't downplay your progress. Celebrate it. Take a moment to acknowledge how far you've come, even if you're just getting started. Congratulate yourself for just showing up. So the takeaway here is simple. Momentum is built on small, consistent actions. You don't have to do it all at once, and in fact, you shouldn't try. Start with one small step today. Think about what that is for you, and let that build into the next step. Before you know it, momentum will take over, and you'll be moving towards your goal faster than you ever thought possible. It's slower than you want and faster than you can imagine. Honestly, this was the easiest thing I've ever done. So let's take a step back for a minute and look at the bigger picture here. So, yeah, we've been talking a lot about health and fitness and building momentum and creating habits and making sustainable changes, but this is about more than just physical health. This is about taking responsibility for the gift of life and health that we've all been entrusted with. And so as somebody that is a believer and a person of faith, I believe that our bodies are a gift from God. We're called to be stewards of that gift. And stewardship isn't just about making big, bold moves when we feel inspired. It's about the daily, consistent actions that we take to care for what we've been given. Whether it's our health, our relationships, or our faith, we're responsible for nurturing those things, even when it's hard, even when the motivation isn't there. So in the same way that building momentum in our health is about showing up every day, no matter how small the action, the same principle applies to our spiritual lives. It's not always about having that deep emotional experience of faith, the big aha moments, even though those are great. Sometimes it's about the discipline to pray when you don't feel like it, to open the Bible when you'd rather sleep in, or to serve others when it's inconvenient. I found that building physical discipline and building spiritual discipline go hand in hand. When you create structure in one area of your life, it spills over to others. The momentum I've built in my health journey has also strengthened my walk with God. When I'm physically disciplined, it helps me stay mentally and spiritually disciplined too. So here's the challenge I want to leave with you. What area of your life needs momentum right now? Maybe it's your health. Maybe you need to take that first small step towards getting fit. Maybe it's your faith. Maybe you've been waiting for a spiritual spark to get you back into prayer, Bible reading, or fellowship. Whatever it is, don't wait for motivation to show up. Start today with one small step. Just like you can build momentum with your health, you can build momentum in your faith. Pick one small spiritual habit. Maybe it's reading a Bible verse each morning, or a devotional, or setting aside a few minutes for prayer. Whatever it is, start small and build from there. As you take those small daily actions, momentum will take over, and you'll see the impact, and you'll see the growth, and it's over time. You need to put time on your side. You know time is going to go by. And so let it work for you. Don't try and beat the clock. Embrace the clock. Remember, this journey, whether it's physical, spiritual, or both, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. In fact, the hardest day for you is going to be the day you're not perfect. It's the day that you stopped. And the question is, am I going to start the next day? Because I'm no longer perfect. I was good for 30 days, and then I screwed up. Or 90 days, and then I screwed up. Or for a year, and then I screwed up. It's the day after perfect that's going to be one of the most important days for you. And it's okay. Give yourself grace, because it's about progress. It's about showing up. It's about taking responsibility. And it's about honoring the life you've been given and making the most of it. So here's my challenge for you today. Think about one area of your life where you've been waiting for motivation. Could be your health, your faith, could be a relationship, whatever it is. Take that first small step towards building momentum. Maybe it's one push-up. Maybe it's cutting out sugar in your coffee or quitting drinking sodas. Maybe it's praying for 5 minutes a day. Whatever it is, start today. And when you put your head on your pillow tonight, it's a yes or no. Did I do the thing? Yes or no? And if it's a no, then get back out of bed and do it. Or make sure that tomorrow you're so disgusted with yourself that your goal is set so low that you literally humiliate yourself into getting it done. That's how I ended up with one sit-up and one push-up. I'd love to hear from you. What's the one step you're going to take? Put it in the comments section. Reach out on social media. Send me a message. Let me know how you're building momentum in your life. And let's hold each other accountable as we all take responsibility for the life we've been given. And I'm going to do a series on this. So next week, we're going to dive into something that changed my whole perspective on health. And you can't out-pray a bad diet, is what I'm calling it. It's about aligning your spiritual health with your physical health. I can't wait to share that conversation with you. And until then, keep showing up, keep building momentum, and I'll see you the next time on Dad Mode. God, grit, and goals. And remember our 4 core truths. God is good. Jesus has forgiven you. You are loved, and everything is possible. Have a great day.